What's going on, everyone? We are back and just in time for Wildcard weekend and the start of the NFL playoffs. We've got two games on Saturday, then another two on Sunday. And as always, I have got my game-by-game picks outright on the spread, and then we'll also look at some locks out of the bunch. So let's get right into it. Kicking things off on Saturday, we have got two divisional opponents going at it, the Indianapolis Colts at the Houston Texans. Now, both these teams obviously very familiar with each other. This will be the third time they're playing, where the last two times both ended with a road victory for the visiting team. So the series is split. And honestly, if we look at both these teams, they kind of got here in a similar fashion. Obviously, the Texans ultimately ended up winning the AFC South at 11-5, but the Indianapolis Colts at 10-6 started off the season pretty poorly, similar to the Houston Texans, and then got hot towards the end of the season, really being led by that offense and behind Andrew Luck, who returned healthy in 2018. Now, the Colts get here as a wild card team. They'll be on the road. Now, personally, I don't think that'll matter too much. I'm not too worried about it. As far as the spread goes, the Houston Texans are favored by 1.5. Somewhat makes sense. They've got that great defense, especially up front. I'm still a little bit questioning the secondary for the Texans, but they've got a healthy Deshaun Watson. That's been extremely important for them too. They've got DeAndre Hopkins, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, a healthy Lamar Miller, and that trio will be going up against Andrew Luck and that amazing offensive line for the Indianapolis Colts, which I think will ultimately be the difference maker in this matchup because, look, ultimately, Andrew Luck, Deshaun Watson, let's call it close to a wash. I do think Andrew Luck is the better overall passer, but maybe Deshaun Watson can go ahead and get a couple more plays from his legs. They've both got great wide receivers with T.Y. Hilton and then DeAndre Hopkins. I do like Marlon Mack and Lamar Miller. I think both those guys are, serviceable running backs. Then Eric Ebron maybe is that little bit of an X factor for the Indianapolis Colts. I really like the way Dontrell Inman has come on lately into the scene for the Indianapolis Colts. I think that's been a nice weapon for them as of late. But where I really do think the Colts hold the distinct advantage is that offensive line. The addition of Quinn Nelson in this year's draft, I think, really helped solidify the line. And it shows because Andrew Luck has been held upright compared to Deshaun Watson, who has been getting hit left and right. Now, look, I realize the Texans do have J.J. Watt. They do have Jadeveon Clowney. They've got the names, they've got the players, they've got the Pro Bowlers. But I do think the Colts will be able to go ahead and neutralize what they are able to do. And to me, the better passing team here is the Indianapolis Colts. I've been saying it all season long. To me, Andrew Luck was one of those maybe top 5 MVPs, outside of the Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers talk. I think he was right afterwards. And I think we're going to continue to see that in the playoffs. As far as the spread, like I said, it's pretty much a pick'em game because ultimately I don't think that the winning margin is going to be by right around 1 point. So for that reason, I just have to go with the team that I like more. And right now, I just have more faith in the better offensive team. To me, that's the Indianapolis Colts. It just comes down to this factor. When the game's on the line, who would you rather have, Andrew Luck or Deshaun Watson? I'd go with the more accurate passer in Andrew Luck. I'll go with the guy that's going to have more time to pass the football, who's Andrew Luck. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts to go ahead on the road and get this victory. Honestly, I think the last two times both these teams played, the Colts should have won both times. I don't think the Texans are quite as good as their record suggests. I do think that the Colts are a team that offensively can go ahead and pretty much contend with any opponent out there, especially in the AFC. Maybe the Kansas City Chiefs are the only team that wouldn't be the case with, but so far, the teams that are going to be playing Wildcard Weekend, I like the chances of the Indianapolis Colts. I feel pretty confident that they can go ahead and beat their divisional opponent, get the victory on the road outright, and ultimately on the spread since the Texans are favored there. Next up on Saturday night, we have got the Seattle Seahawks at the Dallas Cowboys. Both these teams finished the season with identical records at 10-6. Only difference is that the Cowboys with that record were able to win their division, whereas the Seahawks are a wild card team and will be traveling to Dallas. Now, these teams actually did play earlier in the season where the Seahawks were victorious in Seattle, so that is one big difference here. We all know that the Seahawks, for the entirety of the season, have been a much better home team compared to on the road, and I anticipate a lot of Dallas fans pointing to that as a primary reason why they should be favored in this matchup. And let's also look at some other factors here. Since that meeting, the Cowboys have gotten better. Look, they've added Amari Cooper, which has opened things up for them in the passing attack. Ezekiel Elliott has gotten more involved as a runner, and Dak has looked better as a passer. On the other end, for the Seahawks, I realize they are also a run-first team. Chris Carson has looked great. The return of Doug Baldwin, a healthy Doug Baldwin these last couple of weeks, really gives you a scary trio with Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, and then Chris Carson. Now, I do anticipate, again, with that defense, the Dallas Cowboys to be favored, which is the case. On the spread, they are minus 2-point favorites. But I'm going to go back to this. I have been on the Seattle Seahawks bandwagon, supporting them and saying that I think they're going to be a very dangerous team for a while now. I think Pete Carroll did an excellent job turning this team around, giving them that new identity with the rushing attack. Russell Wilson, similar to what I said about Andrew Luck, has looked like an MVP, especially in the latter parts of the season. I know the Cowboys have the better offensive line, but don't sleep on the Seattle Seahawks. As far as rushing the football, they have done a good job opening up lanes for those running backs. Whether it's Chris Carson, Davis, or Rashad Penny, the Seahawks do have options. And honestly, Russell Wilson should be included in that equation. I realize Dak Prescott can also rush the football, but I do think Russell Wilson is a little bit more experienced in that category. I also think he is a more accurate passer. And as far as clutch goes, in terms of what quarterback would you want with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it's Russell Wilson, no doubts about that. So for that reason, I do have to give the edge here to Russell Wilson, at least at the quarterback position. As far as wide receivers, look, maybe before Doug Baldwin, while he was still injured, I would say give the Dallas Cowboys the advantage. But with the healthy Doug Baldwin, I like the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott is a better option than Chris Carson, but I just think all the options that the Seattle Seahawks have themselves, whether it's Davis, Carson, or Penny, like I mentioned before, gives them a little bit more options and possibilities. So for that reason, I really like offensively what the Seattle Seahawks can do on the road even. And I will say this, if they can get past the Dallas Cowboys, man, I wouldn't be surprised if the Seahawks end up in the NFC Championship. I think they can really give even a team like the New Orleans Saints a scare, but that's a conversation for another time. For now, we're focusing in on this matchup. And even though the Dallas Cowboys have the better defense, that is one of their strengths here. I think Russell Wilson is the type of quarterback that can go ahead and neutralize that type of defense. And I will say this, I'm taking the Seattle Seahawks on the road here. I think they can go ahead, win this football game. It wouldn't surprise me if this is, not that high scoring of an affair, because it will be probably run first football for both these sides. To me, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 20-17, maybe 23-20. But ultimately, I would take the Seattle Seahawks to win this game. I think they're a little bit more explosive offensively, and I think they will be able to do enough defensively and capitalize on some Dak Prescott mistakes to win by right around a field goal. And since the Cowboys are favored on the spread, I'm going Seattle not only outright, but on the spread as well. Next, getting to our Sunday games, we start with the LA Chargers at the Baltimore Ravens. The Chargers at 12-4 narrowly missed out winning their division, and now, as a result, won't have a bye week and instead will be traveling to Baltimore to play the 10-6 Baltimore Ravens, who only a couple of weeks ago faced the Chargers and defeated them pretty convincingly behind a great defensive effort. And now the question is, will we see a similar type of performance? Because I'll be honest with you guys, this is the one game this weekend that is the toughest for me to predict. On one side of things, we've got the LA Chargers, who have a very dominant offense and a team with a lot more experience, which, believe me, that counts for something when you get into the playoffs. Compared to the Baltimore Ravens, a relatively unexperienced team for the most part offensively, especially at the quarterback position in the playoffs, but they've got home field advantage in this game and they've got a dominant defense. Now, I don't quite think we're going to see the type of contest that we did the last time these two sides played, but I will say I still like the Ravens in this matchup. And it's honestly a shame that these two teams are facing each other, because I do honestly believe that whoever wins can make a deep push in the AFC. But like I said, I am giving the edge to the Ravens behind the rushing abilities of Lamar Jackson, who I do think can go ahead and get out of some tough situations, and the emergence of the rushing attack of the Ravens in general, but more importantly, the defense, because that is, for the most part, the second best defense in the NFL behind the Chicago Bears. I think they will be able to slow down Phillip Rivers, and we all do know that Rivers, as good as he is a quarterback that takes a lot of chances and can often throw a lot of interceptions or suffer a lot of fumbles due to that. Now, I do think the Ravens are the type of defense that can go ahead and capitalize off that. The one difference here is I think we'll see a lot closer of a contest. I think it'll go down to 1 or 2 final drives late in the fourth quarter. I anticipate something in the realms of 27-24, with the Baltimore Ravens ultimately winning the game behind a defensive stop. Now, a situation where I could see the LA Chargers winning here is if they go up early in this game, then I think it could be over before we know it, because the Ravens are just not built to come back from behind. They're built to go ahead, build a nice lead, and then have the defense kind of lock things down from there. But I just don't think we're going to see that from a Harbaugh coach team and from a team with that type of defense in general. So for that reason, even though the spread right here is -2.5, I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit. I'm actually going to go ahead and take the Chargers on the spread. I like the Baltimore Ravens outright, but on the spread, I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think that this game will be decided by no more than 3 points. Maybe it'll be by 2 points, by 1 point, or the Chargers can squeak out a victory. For that reason, I'm hedging my bets, going with the Chargers on the spread, but ultimately, I'm picking the Baltimore Ravens to go ahead and be victorious on Sunday outright. And finally, our last Sunday game, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Chicago Bears. And talk about a team that should be sending thank you notes to the other, because the Philadelphia Eagles should be right now counting their blessings, because if it wasn't for the Chicago Bears, they wouldn't be in this situation. The Bears had to beat the Vikings, the Eagles had to beat the Redskins. That's exactly what happened, and the Eagles squeaked into the playoffs. And no matter how it happened, how ugly it was, the Eagles right now are still defending Super Bowl champions, and there's something to be said about that. They've been here before, they've done it before, they've done it with the exact same quarterback, and especially offensively, not a lot of things have changed, so keep an eye out on that. I think we're going to see a very interesting matchup here, starting with the head coaches in Peterson and Matt Nagy. I think these are some of the two most unique coaches and most interesting coaches to watch. I think they can come up with some great plays offensively. I think thanks to them is the reason why we've seen a lot of success from guys like Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky, even though they might not necessarily be top tier quarterbacks. But as far as the matchup itself goes, moving on from the head coaching situation, I'm going to go ahead here and break down the Chicago Bears first, because offensively, look, I don't think they're the type of team that can go ahead and solely be responsible for a margin of victory by around 10 points. The spread right now is set at -6.5, and even though I do see a scenario where the Bears cover that, I think it's going to be thanks to their defense, because that's where the strength of this team lies. It's that defense, that dominant defense, the best defense in the league, a defense that has caused fits for teams like the LA Rams, and I think they can definitely do the same versus the Philadelphia Eagles. But it'll be interesting to watch, because Nick Foles, I don't know what he did. Maybe he made a deal with the devil, but man, apparently it's still not up, because this guy has another chance to make a run for the Eagles. Even though defensively their secondary has a lot of question marks, I think their front can go ahead, cause some issues for Mitchell Trubisky. But the good news for the Bears are obviously Mitchell Trubisky, a very mobile guy, can use his legs and make some plays there. For the Eagles, they're going to really have to go ahead and take advantage of a guy in Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, just really have a great game. Obviously, Nick Foles is expected to play here. There was a little bit of a scare with the hit he took to the ribs, but apparently not that big of an issue. We'll see if that's true or not. I don't think the weather should be that big of a factor here. I think both these teams have the experience playing in adverse conditions. Honestly, though, what I think right now could potentially be the most interesting thing in this game to watch, and what I, for a fact, know that the Chicago Bears throughout the country are most worried about, is their special teams, led by Cody Parkey, because the debate has been nonstop this week for the Bears. You know, if it's late in the fourth quarter with only 1 or 2 timeouts left, and you have the decision between kicking a 48-yard field goal, being down by 1 or 2 points, or going for it, what do you do? And a lot of people have said go for it, because that's how little faith they have in Parkey, who hasn't looked good this year at all. You know, we saw a stretch where he was really struggling, then somewhat got back into a groove, and then now maybe struggling a little bit more so. But hopefully, I don't even think the Bears are going to be in that situation. I think defensively, they're going to be able to do enough good things where late in the fourth quarter, they'll be up by right around 10 points, maybe 7. Maybe the Eagles make them sweat a little bit and get a field goal or something like that. But ultimately, the Bears make an important defensive stop and win this game. Now, the spread worries me here a little bit, -6.5. I think it could be closer to that. I think we could see some garbage time points and ultimately lower that spread. So I will actually take the Philadelphia Eagles on the spread. I think in this playoff situation with a Bears team that likes to go ahead and hold games to lower scoring, I think it's wise to take the under on the spread and take the Eagles there. So for that reason, I'm going Philly on the spread, but the Chicago Bears outright. So with that, we finish up our pick'ems. Now looking at our locks for this weekend, a little bit harder to do since there's only 4 games. But look, I still have 2 matchups here that I'm highlighting. One is the Seattle Seahawks at the Dallas Cowboys. Plain and simple, I'm going with Seattle. I think they're the better team. I know that they're going to have some issues as this isn't a game in Seattle. But to me, offensively, with Doug Baldwin back, I think they're as dangerous as you could want a team to be. Russell Wilson, to me, is leagues better than Dak Prescott, and for that reason, I'm going with Seattle. I think Russell Wilson will be able to make some magic happen and ultimately, if need be, lead a fourth quarter comeback or a game-winning drive, game-ending drive. And then finally, Philadelphia at the Chicago Bears. Look, give me the Chicago Bears here. With that dominant defense, I think they will be able to go ahead and handle the Eagles on Wildcard weekend. I think Nick Foles will suffer several turnovers, and ultimately the Bears will be able to get a victory by right around 5, 6, or 7 points. So for that reason, I'm taking the Bears there. And with that, we finish up our locks of the week as well. And as always, let me know what you guys thought. Did you agree, disagree? Let me hear any questions you guys might or might not have in the comments section. And as always, if you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.